All right, how are we doing this morning, everybody? It's Larsen Live. It is September 10th, 2022, and things are go. We opened up with the Overture from Christopher Lee's heavy metal concept album, Charlemagne by the Cross and the Sword. Considering what's been going on in the last couple of days, it seemed pretty fitting. Obviously, we're going to talk about the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and like pretty much every other European royal, she is of some relation to Charlemagne of France, was she not? Also, I believe Christopher Lee himself was also a descendant of Charlemagne. Yep, good old Charlemagne the Giga Chad, hoarding all the nubile maidens of Dark Age France, and all the Frank cells were seething with impotent rage. See, now, if Charlemagne was a good king, he would have had, feudally mandated girlfriends. But alas, he had to, he was too busy doing the bloody verdict of Verdun and what have you. Anyway, as the title of the stream would imply, my first week of proper teaching is done, and I apparently kicked all the ass, according to my sped inclusion teachers at any rate. Yeah, I got a couple of special ed classes I got to teach, and yeah, they said I did good. They are the experienced teachers, and I am the fresh-faced novice. I still don't have the full pay, though. I still have to yell at Trenton some more. It's really great doing full-time work for part-time pay, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do something new this year, this winter more specifically, since I now have the money for it. Once, or should I say, once I get the money for it, I'm officially going to protein the fuck up. Be stacking them macros, drinking protein shakes every day, getting swole, stacking that freezer with chicken. Then I'm going to rip off my clothes come springtime. I'm going to be fucking swole. No more poverty, food for Larsen. But yes, how is everybody doing? Hey, C-Punk Messiah is tired. Yes, I am well. I love doing constant lesson planning, but I'm hoping to get at least like outlines of lesson plans done. Ideally by the end of the month, probably not something in the middle of October, so I can officially start getting my groove on. Yes, thank you, C-Punk Messiah, for the congratulations. My career has just started, but it seems to be going good so far. The way I see it, as long as I do things diligently, I show up on time, and I, upload my shit to Google Classroom, what have you. They can't fire me for some bullshit reason. Like, what are they going to fire me for? Because my teaching style is a bit unorthodox. I'm going to tell you, the way I teach my students is pretty much the way I talk here, except without profanity. I am a suave cocktail dinner party lecturer of the New Jersey public school system. Anyway, first off, a correction about my show last week. Apparently, I was totally unaware that there was, in fact, a new Space Channel 5 game that came out in 2020, I believe. Let me just check on that for a brief second. I should have these open, but I'm not. Let's see. I think, yeah, 2020. So, yes, my apologies to any fans that I offended. Keep up the dancing, ooh la la. Secondly, I'm also announcing that I have officially sold off all my crypto holdings, or hodlings, as the weird crypto people say. Yes, the holdings that I bought for $1,500 but are now worth $700 and became $697 once Coinbase, had to take their cut, of course. Yeah, when an asset depreciates by more than 50% in a week, I think it's time to jump ship. I mean, let's be honest. Cryptocurrency and NFTs, they were always a get-rich-quick Ponzi scheme. I mean, some people did manage to get rich, getting lucky by being able to jump off back when it was still worth something. I failed miserably at that. But, yeah, I think crypto's done. Bitcoin is now down to $17,000, and it's dropping fast. A peak of, what was it, 50,000 at its peak? Yeah, yeah, get off your cryptos, people. It's done. Crypto is over. All right, so yeah, let's get right to the news then. So the big news this week was, of course, that Queen Elizabeth II, HRM, Her Royal Majesty, died of a sudden acute case of being 96 years old. I'm going to be honest with you, I have never really been super into the whole royal glorified soap opera that it is. I like to say that I'm an American, and as such, the American flag, the stars and stripes, bow to no earthly king. I really wish that sentiment was still more prevalent in this country. But, I offer my condolences. This is a woman, she's a wife, mother, grandmother, great grandmother. Uh, Obviously, I would offer my condolences to her family, just like I would to anybody whose matriarch died. Really seems to be a bit divisive on the Twitters, though, this whole issue. I mean, a couple of things I have to point out is that the crowd outside Buckingham Palace was astoundingly white, which is interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't London now like 60% non-white? But, you know, they literally scrounged up, I guess, every actual Anglo person that still lives in London to mourn outside Buckingham Palace. I think I saw a couple of Indian guys there too, but yeah, it was mostly pasty-faced Anglos. It's almost as if moving to a country does not automatically make you of the culture. It's something you have to forcibly do. Well, not forcibly. I mean, the immigrant has to choose to assimilate, and I really feel like a lot of people are deliberately not doing so. Which ties into the next thing I got to say is that a bunch of absolute dickheads were celebrating her death. You had a. I mean, I can kind of understand if like a bunch of Irish people do, like, I guess, but most of the anger seems to be from like liberal American people, like African Americans and just douchey like liberal white people. What I've seen, I mean, it's worth pointing out that like, I mean, I didn't see people from like, actually from India doing this. It's a bunch of upper class caste Brahmin like university professors at Harvard who were celebrating her death. I didn't see like actual Caribbean people celebrating her death. It was a bunch of angry black people in America who were celebrating it. And I don't know. I personally don't understand why you would get so furious at a 96-year-old woman. And yeah, I know technically she proceeded over, decolonization, which was not exactly a easy process. But you know, look, the British monarchy is basically a theme park at this point. Like, how much? Got a text message. And one of my female admirers. Anyway, yeah, like I said, the British monarchy is basically a glorified clown show at this point, isn't it? So, how much political power does she really have over, like, I don't know, the suppression of the Mau Mau rebellion or some shit like that? I don't know. There's just something I find incredibly distasteful about people like applauding the death of a 96-year-old lady. But again, like I said, I really ultimately could not care all that much about the whole royal falderah. Anyway, yes, now running the show is King Charles III. I don't even know what relationship he is to her. Is he her son? I know that Prince Philip has like people in Vanuatu who worship him as a god. This shows how little I care about this whole issue. Anyway, yeah, speaking of old Blighty, apparently there's going to be some kind of election. There might be another lady running the show at 10 Downing Street, which, God help us all for that. All right, but yeah, let's leave Blighty behind for now. We're going to be jumping around a bit. There's quite a lot going on in politics this week. Yeah, we're going to go to one of England's colonial offshoots, our country, the United States. Well, I know I have some international listeners. But guess what's happening again? The Bank of America announces zero down payments, zero closing cost mortgages, specifically for Black and Hispanic first-time homebuyers. Out of curiosity, does anybody remember the 2008 recession? Remember how that was caused? Yeah, it was offering, you know, cheap mortgages for, the dregs of society of all races, okay? Obviously, not all, non-Asian minorities are just frivolously, making it rain, but in general, offering mortgages to people can't afford it, that doesn't go well. Anyway, let's see what Bank of America has to say. Bank of America says it's now offering first-time home buyers in a select group of cities zero down payments, zero closing cost mortgages to help grow homeownership amongst the non-Asian minority communities. It's that good old W. Bush era, essentially right-wing liberalism. Like, oh, everybody should own homes. Me. Anyway, this option will first become available in certain neighborhoods in Charlotte, Dallas, Detroit, Los Angeles, and Miami. This is the Community Affordable Loan Solution, CALS, aims to help eligible individuals and families obtain an affordable loan to purchase a home, says the bank. And of course, the reason they do this is due to some vague, fuzzy, good time feeling about home ownership strengthening the communities and can help individuals and families build wealth over time. So, yeah, you don't need insurance and anything like that. I mean, I agree. Homes should be more affordable. But again, this just seems like a 1-2 punch of, you got BlackRock and other big equity firms buying up all the homes and forcing us to rent. Then it's like, haha, suckers. Here's some cheap houses. You're going to default on the mortgages in 5 years. And we're going to take those homes, deal with it. Yeah, if only people actually cared about giving the American citizen a home. Yeah, but whatever, that's not going to happen anytime soon. Okay, we're just jumping around politically wise. All right. Leaving North America, and now we're going to South America. And we will be going back to North America shortly thereafter. Let's go to South America. Let's go to the wonderful, wonderful land of Chile. Chileans had a proposed new left-wing constitution, a constitution that would have had more, left-wing fal-de-rah in it than any constitution in the world. And it was astoundingly rejected. Reuters World says Chileans rejected a proposed new constitution to replace the one adopted during the Pinochet dictatorship 41 years ago, resulting from a referendum showed on Sunday. A social upheaval that began in 2019 led to nearly 80% of Chileans voting to draft that new constitution, but the current draft, which includes all the stuff about fighting climate change, indigenous rights, and legalizing abortion, was controversial. And obviously, there's a lot of coping and seething going on about this. CNN in Espanol says, Revivio Pinochet. Like, it's literally like General Pinochet is rising from the grave and he's smacking down this constitution. Insert, caravan of death joke here, helicopter, whatever joke here. This is a bit histrionic, don't you think? I mean, I'm curious as to why Chileans might have rejected this, I say sarcastically. I mean, maybe they could just look across the border at Venezuela, and I say that not knowing even if Venezuela and Chile do share borders, and look at what a shit show's going on under the Chavez and Maduro governments. Or maybe they're looking over at Bolivia, which is going to soon go off a cliff. Or perhaps Colombia, which is also going to go tank it pretty soon. Yeah, no, I can't imagine why Chileans might reject this, hard left-wing constitution. I just can't. And, again, I don't profess to be an expert in Latin American politics to begin with, but from my general understanding, Augusto Pinochet is sort of seen similarly as like Park Chung-hee in Korea. Obviously, not a pleasant time for anybody, but, seen as sort of like a necessary evil to prevent, a different and much worse leftist, hard slant and general, chaos and insanity going on. Again, I don't profess to be an expert in Chilean or Korean politics. I'll let that be decided by the more knowledgeable listener. There's a lot of conversation going on in this chat, I say sarcastically. I will also point out that the Pinochet government in Chile was the only government, as far as I'm aware of, that actually like hardline adopted, like the Austrian economics that the libertarians all love so much. I don't know if that says about libertarianism that the only government that adopted it was like a hard right wing dictatorship. But on the other hand, Chile is the most wealthy country in Latin America, so yeah, maybe it did work out. Going back to North America, in Saskatchewan, Canada, there was a mass stabbing on a reservation or some such. Let's read up a little bit on that. Okay, so basically what happened there in Saskatchewan. I'm going to open up an article on that right now. Okay, so the New York Times reports on it. We see a certain trend in the New York Times about how the Sanderson brothers who committed the stabbing, 10 people stabbed, 25 more. I'm sorry, 10 people murdered, 25 more injured. This was on a reservation, so these gentlemen were, of course, First Nation. They were Canadian natives. The New York Times obfuscated that as much as possible. I mean, the NYT article repeatedly refers to, the community, but it never says what community the Sandersons came from. And I quote, as investigators pore over a sprawling and complex trail of crimes, a clearer picture is emerging of the stabbing rampage on an indigenous reserve in Canada. I mean, one might say that the picture they want you to imagine is a bunch of evil white men murdering a bunch of Native Americans for some reason. Yeah, it's John Ford all up in this bitch. Continuing to read the article. The reserve and the community around it in the western Canadian province of Saskatchewan are no strangers to crime, most of it tied to the crystal meth trade. The authorities there have rarely seen anything like the events that began in the pre-dawn hours on Sunday when Miles and Damien Sanderson embarked on these attacks, which killed 10 people. Now, of course, someone like me can figure out that, the community is clearly the Cree Nation, but again, it never makes it explicit for some strange reason. And of course, the good people of Canada are, you know, up in arms a bit. It's like, oh no, no one's paying attention to the Indigenous community. And of course, they're tying this back. So they're tying it back to Queen Elizabeth dying. And I quote some dick on Twitter was like, an old white lady died, so therefore nobody has to think about 10 people being murdered on an Indian reservation. Again, everybody seems to be dancing around the fact that this is, Indian on Indian here. C-Punk Messiah points out in comments that yes, Ponythrow will be dominating the chat by now. Yeah, where is everybody? I mean, I don't prepare that much in the way of remarks. Like I usually like to bounce off the crowd here. That's how I could talk for like almost 2 hours last time. Actually, more than 2 hours, I think it was. Or maybe it was the fact that I was talking about the Sega cinematic universe last time. And I'm not gonna lie, like I don't mind doing a short show. It gives me more time to be a responsible grown up and work on my lesson plans. Yeah, it's great being a responsible adult. And yes, as I said repeatedly, and I'm going to continue saying, I want to just plow through as much work as possible so I can, throw my newfound riches around and get my groove on. Yes, I need waistcoats and I need them now, damn it. Vaguely related to the whole Saskatchewan reservation stabbing, in silly, like, racist hysteria news. There was a couple of racist hysterias going on this past week, and you had the Brigham Young University alleged, racial slur thing, which ended up being absolutely nothing. But, there's a certain group of people that see, a big group of corn-fed white people, which, BYU undoubtedly is. They just start panicking and assuming that there's racism looking behind every corner. There was not. And I question how much, like, would even be going on there. Yes, I'm fully aware that the Mormons have a little bit of a history when it comes to race. They also have a little bit of a history with regards to just general insanity. I'd like to point out that Mormons and Muslims are the only two religions that have declared war on America. But, overall, I don't mind Mormons too bad. But then again, I don't respond with naked hysteria to just a crowd of white people being white people. They weren't even doing anything bad. Anyway, in other racial hysteria idiocy news, Vice News had an article on the 7th, which is saying, and I quote, "Police dogs were invented by slave catchers. Now they're used by cops." Yes, the alleged, like, connectivity between slave catchers and the modern police force is one of the dumbest goddamn concepts I've ever heard. I mean, are you really telling me that nobody in the 20,000 years since dogs were domesticated had the idea to let a dog loose and chase people? In fact, I know for a fact that military dogs have been used since ancient times, and designated police dogs were used going back to medieval France. But, everything's got to be banned to land on slavery. History started. History started in 1619, allegedly. In case you're wondering, yes, I have heard recently that if you go to the National Museum of African American History, part of the Smithsonian, you will see placards that say that white people literally invented slavery in the 17th century. Gee, I wonder why CRT might be a bit controversial. Imagine, you got some, ruffly shirt-wearing douchebag going, "Hey, guys, I come up with this brilliant idea. No one's ever come up with it before. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take some people, then we're going to, force them to work for us for no money. Brilliant, sir. Put up some statues. Yes." Okay, C-Punk Messiah got some comments here saying, "I feel very good about myself when I do responsible adult things." Yes, don't we all? C-Punk Messiah says, "I'm prone to having my responsible adult demeanor fall apart, and it sucks, but I keep trying to avoid being a fail son." Yeah, I mean, being a fail son is never good. I mean, I've been a fail son a little bit myself. Don't take the idea that I've never failed in life, because I have. He also says that humans invented slavery as soon as they got a superiority complex. And Detective 5 says, donating $5. I'm expecting to hear Mark Wahlberg screaming "pow." I don't know where it is yet, but M Detective 5 says, "If the current year is to be believed, everything is racist nowadays." I wouldn't be surprised if somebody said breathing was racist. There's actually a fun little game they play on Twitter sometimes, which is like, there's Mark Wahlberg. Anyway, yeah, there's a game on Twitter where it's like, type in X racist into Google and see if something comes up. So is fitness racist? Is bread racist? Is clothing racist? So I want to put that in. Is breathing racist? Okay, so apparently there's a book on Amazon which is called "Breathing is Racist." It might be a bit of a joke. I'm going to look up that description right now. Okay. Yes, this one is a joke. However, Mother Jones does have an article saying this is how racist your air is. And if you're white, you're probably breathing cleaner air than black people. So, yes, the game is undefeated. Breathing is racist. Dave Slankovich says, didn't Eric Adams say he wanted video cameras outside of police faces? The cameras have solved crimes. Yeah, funny story about that, actually. Everybody was pushing for like the body cams, so much for the cops. And then, they noticed a little trend. They noticed that a lot of times people were acting like complete belligerent shitheads and they kind of bring it on themselves. And a lot of times the police were justified in, kicking the ass of the, often black perpetrator. And now people know, nobody's talking about those body cams anymore. Because now it's like, oh no, it exposes, bad behavior. Similarly, and again, this is very personal to my heart, it's like that Stop Asian Hate hashtag that was going on Twitter a couple years ago. Yeah, they stopped that pretty quick when they realized who was committing the Asian hate. It wasn't white people. But I digress. But yeah, like dogs dogs have been used in policing and warfare for millennia. Like I don't understand how dumb it is to blame the dog. And yeah, can we stop blaming dogs for like the actions of their masters? And yes, I am referring to how during the Civil War, like Union soldiers would literally like murder packs of bloodhounds from plantations because yes, they were used to track slaves. But come on, the dog doesn't know what he's doing. It's ridiculous. And yeah, I was talking about selective breeding a little bit in class the other day, and I tried to do it in the most classy and genteel ways possible. But believe me, it was incredibly hard to try to just dunk on how pugs are just these grotesque genetic failures. I mean, I kind of subtly alluded to it, but you know, screw pugs. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Any animal that has its eyeballs pop out of its head should probably be put out of its misery. Anyway, speaking of dogs, it's time for da 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 da. Pitbulls posting Ls. Okay, there's a video of a pitbull attack in Istanbul. I can't read Turkish. I don't know what the hell that says. Yeah, there's a oh boy, here's a video on pit bulls posting L's. A pit bull got into a goat uh shed and just murdered a bunch of goats. I mean, it must have been some small goats because I've seen some goats that could kick some ass. I mean, goats have. I know at least one guy's been killed by goats. What's Yeah, there's another video on pit bulls posting L's of some young kid who got scratched and bit to shit by a pit bull. And it's not here at the moment, but one of the funniest, I mean, in a funny and a depressing way, is I saw a video of a pit bull. Okay, so there was a guy getting attacked by like a dog, I think. I don't know if the dog that was getting attacked was a. Wait, no, I got it. So, okay, there was a guy getting mugged. There was like a strong arm robbery. There's a fight, and some lady with her surrogate, like adopted, criminal sex, like pen pal, aka a pit bull, was walking by, and she was like, "I'm gonna, do a rescue." Burp, 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 burp. And then what happens? The pit bull jumps in, attacks the wrong guy, attacks the guy getting mugged, then it attacks the owner, and the pit bull's, just having the time of his life, just mauling people, and then the criminal gets away. And I guess real recognize real. Pitbull recognizes a fellow, you know, criminal and just jumped in to help his, his boy. Okay, C Punk Messiah says pugs need some new dog breeds in its gene pool. Yeah, they do. I mean, I love those like my ancestor memes of like pit bulls looking up at, I'm sorry, not pit bulls, but like pugs looking up at wolves or it's like the dog with a time machine where the pug goes back to ancient times and the wolf is like, what the fuck is that thing? Punk Messiah says goats and rams are pretty rad. Yes, they are. And I think there's like little, like maybe fainting goats or something, because I've seen some big goats, and I'm pretty sure some of those big goats could beat up a pit bull. And Rick says the pit bull wants it to be Constantinople. Well, like I said, I don't read or speak Turkish, so I don't know what exactly was going on in this pit bull thing. I just see, in Istanbul, two pit bulls, blah blah blah, like Turk nonsense. It's all Turkish. I don't know what the hell this is saying. Let's watch the video. Okay, so let's see. We got it's a pit bull. Looks like he's got some other dog, and these two guys, they're just like full force, like punching and kicking this pit bull, and it will not let go. Oh God, I think he's got him. I think he's got the other dog by the face too. Yeah, he's biting. Yeah, the other owner just runs full force, starts kicking the pit bull in the stomach, does nothing. Pit bull still, still biting. The owner is okay. Then eventually, some guy runs and sprays the dog with looks like some water or something. The pit bull's got a chunk of something in his mouth. Oh my God, there's blood being dragged on the road there. Ugh, oh boy. Yeah, again, I was just talking about like how you can't blame a dog for its owner. Like, look, a pit bull doesn't really know what it's doing. I mean, it doesn't help that they're one of the dumbest dogs on like intelligence tests. But it's not their fault. They were literally bred to be essentially like thug dogs. They're bred to be killers. They're bred to be fighters. It's not his fault that he was bred for that purpose. I think maybe we should breed a little more gentleness into the pit bull. Hey, they did it with the bulldogs. And then, at the very least, if you're going to own a pit bull, be able to control it. Or at the very least, walk it with a muzzle. Like my ex-girlfriend, she had like a pit mix, and she walked it with a muzzle, so it wasn't just popping off and like biting at people. But that's just my opinion as a non-dog trainer. Okay, C-Punk Messiah says, I'd rather have a Tibetan Mastiff than a pit bull. What about a Russian bear dog? Let me look that boy up. I think that is a Caucasian Shepherd, actually. Yeah, they're very, very large dogs. Yeah, like, Jesus, this thing's enormous. Okay, you gotta look up the Tibetan Mastiff, too. That's a big boy. And then you could also get yourself like a Borzoi, which became sort of mimetic when a Borzoi fought a pit bull and just it kicked its ass. Which is kind of funny since Borzoi look like literal sock puppets. I don't see why you can't like breathe the aggression out of a pit bull. I mean, they did it with Shar-Peis. People forget like Shar-Peis were literally bred to be fighting dogs in China back in the day. But like now they're kind of bred to be like less, bloodthirsty. Yeah, especially like the traditional, they call it like a bone mouth Shar-Pei. It's got, it's less wrinkly. Yeah, this one, this dog looks like it kicks some ass. But they bred the aggression out of it. Again, I think part of the problem is that like these a lot of people who get pit bulls are just these like feral like lumpen proles, who probably have very tiny penises. They're like, yeah, man, I'm gonna be a badass dog. It's gonna kill people. I'm gonna be like, fucking, brap brap. We gotta. I don't. I don't want to sound like I'm profiling people, but like, can we maybe not give pit bulls to like just these feral lumpen proletariats? Like, come on, if you're at an animal shelter and you see some wife beater wearing like weasel face tattooed moron Be like, yeah, brap, brap, I mean a pit bull. Tell him no. M Detector 5 says pit bulls are practically indestructible. I've seen a video where one attacks a horse and still keeps going after getting kicked in the head. I think I've seen that one too. Liam Roddy says my Staffordshire Terrier is peak. I put a sock on my cock. Look, dude, I know Pony Throat's not here, but I don't need two guys making like grotesque sexual references. Thank you very much. Anyway, let's continue on with the news. Something that just came up on Twitter. Apparently, Kyle Rittenhouse is trending again. I mean, long time ago, I made my opinion known on Mr. Rittenhouse, the guy who shot those people in Kenosha, Wisconsin. On the one hand, yes, they were attacking him first. On the other hand, I don't think he should have been there in the first place. So my opinion remains unchanged. I think he should have gotten like probation or something. But apparently, what's going on now is like he's apparently getting like snookered by some like e-thot on TikTok or something like that. Let's see. So yeah, he's got a girlfriend and she's got some TikTok and she's trying to be some sort of influencer or something. And yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. Yes, the young lady of Rittenhouse says on TikTok, I literally have no girlfriends right now, so please add me on Snap. Let's go shopping. My, that's embarrassing. When, first you become famous for, a arguably justifiable double homicide, and then what happens? You get snookered by some thought who basically makes an ass of you, and I guarantee she's going to be like doing OnlyFans the next year or so. Trust me. Well, on the other hand, he did win that court settlement, so he's going to get some money. So I guess that'll justify the pain of dating some skank. Okay. Nimrodi says that I do, in fact, need people making grotesque sexual references. Okay, Biff Sankovic says Akitas are good too. The one I knew tried to break the leash and kill other dogs, let little kids play with him, ride him like a horse. Yeah, I mean, again, you got to train your dog. Because, like, all it takes is just you know, one dog just got to pop off once and then, a kid dies. Maybe, I mean, I think Akitas are much less represented in the dog murder category than pit bulls. Whereas pit bulls really want to, like, pit bulls seem to have a really intense desire to murder children. But yeah, just in general, I wouldn't leave any, like, big kind of working, strong dog with a baby or a child. Incidentally, yeah, the Akita actually looks like kind of a lot like the default dog a little bit. It's got like the pointy face, the pointy ears. I was talking about that again in my class about selective breeding. You know, if you look at like kind of feral dog populations, like the Carolina dog or like the dingo, they all kind of look the same. That might be sort of like the basal sort of phenotype of the dog. Yeah, I don't know why there's so much Doge talk in this live stream, but it's interesting. C-Punk Messiah, referring to the Rittenhouse thing, says, "Thou shalt not feed the thoughts." Yes, thank you. I made a video about it. Stop simping. Don't give these women attention. Don't give them money. Demand standards from your ladies. And then maybe the women will shape up. A country gets the kind of woman it deserves. Like, I mentioned this a couple of months ago, but yeah, apparently there was a time when the problem with American women was that they were too skinny and too well dressed. Yeah, that day's past. much to everybody's disappointment. If you'll excuse me for a second, I'm going to go get some coffee. All right, I'm back. All right, you know what else happened this week? Once again, the terrible, terrible little city of Uvalde, Texas, is in the news again because there was another shooting, this time in the park. I'm going to assume that the cops were just as incompetent there as they were at the school shooting. Once again, I'm really starting to lean towards the idea that the cops should be made, cops should essentially have like a no retreat order, and cops should be like summarily executed if they show brazen cowardice. Well, at least this time it was only 2 people got shot in this shooting, so at least it wasn't as bad. At least the cops weren't sitting around watching Morbius all day. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I know like legally, like cops have no obligation whatsoever to actually like protect you or risk their lives. I think they should, to be honest. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, if a firefighter or a fire department sees a building on fire, aren't they obligated to like put it out? Last I checked. Yeah, I mean, I'm full on like, Order 227, not one step back. If a cop shows cowardice in the line of, death or duty, yeah, you need to just be taken out back and shot. I'm sorry. Biff Slankovich says, "What about Israeli women? They will kick your butt if you don't take them shopping." Well, I mean, I'm not adverse to taking a lady out and paying for things, but I'm referring specifically to internet women. Like these thoughts, like the e-girls, the ones who have OnlyFans websites. I'm saying don't give them attention, because when you give them attention and you give these women money, they get rich, and then it inspires more women to be, cam whores, and more women do that and that and that and that. So I'm saying it will help our culture on the whole if, you know, if we don't give these, cam girls money. That'll make the average woman much nicer and much more presentable. And by the way, Mr. Slankovich, are you referencing Philip Roth there? I was never a huge fan of Philip Roth, but I like some of his stuff. But I digress. C-Punk Messiah says cops need the bar raised immensely for entry, treated like special forces. Well, the thing is, I mean, some cops like, I don't think like traffic cops need to be like hardcore operators. But how about this? How about you have your average like beat cop or like traffic cop or whatever. They don't need to like be super hard, but there should be specifically designated units for situations like this. And yeah, I know technically they're supposed to be like SWAT teams and stuff, but clearly they failed miserably. So we got to really shape up the standards there, like you said. And yeah, again, if you are a specific firearms unit of a cop or whatever, yeah, I'm again Order 227, not one step back. Like if you show cowardice in the line of children being murdered, you need to be executed. Like I'm sorry, but it's gotten to that point. Now, of course, for all this talk about the suck going on in America, there is actually some good news, believe it or not. There is some good news. A company in New York is a construction company is hiring high school graduates, no college degree needed, for 40. Yep, $47 an hour. I think that's great. Like, I think it's great that, like, blue collar schlubs can actually make a living wage. You see, like, this is what can happen if we, actually care about the American citizen. You can get good wages for even grunt work like this. It's about goddamn time we hired American citizens and paid them fair wage instead of just bringing in endless hordes of illegals that'll work for $10 an hour and 15 hours a day. See, like, so much of the problems in this country, like the housing and like the no living wage and that, and probably some of the mass shootings too, because quite a lot of mass shootings are done by disgruntled employees. Is the reason why they only really started up during the Reagan years. Hint, hint. If you just pay people good wages, $47 an hour. I mean, I'm gonna assume this is like a union construction gig, so it's 8 hour day, 47 hours. Sorry, $47 an hour. So let's round that up to, you know, 400 a day. That's 2,000 a week. And that's 8,000 a month. Damn, that's good. It's more than I make. And why shouldn't America prioritize its citizens? Citizens of all colors, all races, all creeds, but citizens. I'm surprised they could even get away with this. I'm surprised there wasn't like a massive, outpouring of just shrieking from, all the corporations in the world paying shit wages to their employees. No, you gotta make the line go up. You gotta the stonks. In case you're wondering, yes, I do have some producerist leanings. Supporting the working man, supporting business to an extent, while also having restrictions on business and paying people a fair wage. A well paid employee works harder and works happier. But again, that might be because I, unlike your average corporate dickhead who's to the manor born, I have actually been a wagey. I've done backbreaking grunt labor, and I know the pain. And I have sympathy for those who have to do it. I mean, it's simultaneously one of the easiest and hardest things to do because, like, these problems could be solved if people just, cared about their fellow citizens and respected them on a basic human level instead of seeing people as like interchangeable cogs you can stiff and, implying that there's some kind of virtue in like being a slave. It's simple, and yet somehow very, very few companies are doing it. I've always said, like, this bullshit about, like, oh, there's jobs Americans won't do. Like, look, I've moved furniture, I've worked in kitchens, I've done pizza delivery, I've done laundry delivery. No, there's no jobs Americans won't do. There's wages Americans won't work for. And to be honest, I was working for some pretty shit wages, but I really didn't have any other option at that point. Okay, there's wages Americans won't work for. There's, no benefits that Americans won't work for. If there's not people coming, maybe you should, I don't know, increase wages. But let's see how little like this, influences in the corporate American culture. I mean, I'm just gonna say like one of the biggest boosters of H-1B visas is Mark Zuckerberg. Just saying. All right, we're gonna move on. We're gonna go back to politics now. We're gonna talk about OPEC, a organization that I'm very much in love with. Sarcasm to the max. Fuck OPEC. Yeah, OPEC is cutting exports. including Russia. Russia is cutting its exports to Western Europe. Hey, remember when a couple years ago President Trump said that that might happen in sorry, not West Germany, but Germany like literally laughed in his face. Yeah, it turns out that that is going to happen. Also, how the hell is Equatorial Guinea energy poor? You're a member of OPEC. You make oil. Well, I mean, obviously I know how because Francisco Nguyen was a raving lunatic. Yeah, things are going to be great. Yeah, gird your loins, people. It's going down. Better get them sweaters because yeah, there's not going to be energy. The farms are shit in the bed. Yeah, it's going to be great. More specifically, OPEC is going to cut their supplies by 100,000 barrels a day. Because the crude oil prices have been sagging because of recession fears, and OPEC being the glorified cartel that it is, doesn't like that. Yeah, OPEC's a cartel, just like the diamond mines. And here I am just biking and kicking ass. I say as I take my bike to the shop to get it tuned up, so I don't have a bike until tomorrow, probably. Okay, let's look at some comments. There are no new comments. That's great. And yeah, speaking of teaching, I also do this in class. Nobody's talking. I will just start calling people at random. Yeah, that's how I roll. Larsen the teacher. Yeah, speaking of Russia, there's a new article in what rag? The foreign policy. And it says, once you begin to look for it, you'll find Russian literature is full of imperialist discourse, romanticized views of conquest and brutality, and silence about the consequences. Says, I'm going to presume this man is Ukrainian, Vladimir Yermolenko. It's like, oh, Russian culture is literally imperialistic. They don't consider the consequences of their actions. Yeah, Russian literature is really known for being glib and smarmily upbeat. Hey, remember that Dostoevsky novel that was literally called Crime Without Punishment? Yeah, that was a good one, wasn't it? And what is it that Anton Chekhov said about guns? Like, if you're going to write a gun hanging on the wall in your story, you can leave it up there because there's nothing bad that can happen from having a gun in the house. Woo! What was, yeah, remember when, yeah, you remember when, like, Raskolnikov, like, didn't suffer any punishments for his actions and, like, everything was happy ever after? Yeah, that totally happened. And remember that Tolstoy novel that was just called War, and that's it? Oh wait, no, I don't remember any of these things happening because they didn't happen. Like, people, you can disapprove of the Ukraine invasion, and I do, without demonizing like all of Russian literature and culture. Have you ever considered that? Like, let's open up this article and go more into it. Russian classical literature is full of dehumanizing nationalism. Then we see Alexander Pushkin rocking some awesome sideburns. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so Russia's literary greats recognized the writings shaped, transported, and ingrained Russia's imperial ideology and nationalist worldview. You got Lermontov, you have so you got Pushkin and Poltava, the Cossack hetman rebelled against Peter the Great. Then you got a Nikolai Gogol, for referencing Taras Bulba. Even if the work is ostensibly sympathetic towards the colonized, like Taurus Bulba or Mitsiri, this empathy is a romantic notion about their internal backwardness and subjugation. I don't know about that. I mean, that was a direct quote, but I don't know about that. I mean, Tolstoy kind of. I mean, obviously, this is kind of obviously referencing like the whole idea of like the Circassian like women and what have you. Which I mean, Tolstoy kind of thoroughly mocked that whole concept in I think it was the Cossacks actually. So even back then, they were kind of deconstructing it. Again, I don't like the whole idea of demonizing an entire culture and its works of art just because you don't like what they're doing today. Of course, he has to cover his ass at the end. Russian literature is no single cause for the Russian crimes, and the connection between culture and politics is not linear. But it is naive to think that Russian culture is innocent and free from the imperialist discourse that has been at the core of Russian politics for millennia. I mean, isn't this kind of like demonizing like James Fenimore Cooper for, America's actions today? I mean, in fact, that's actually a major reason for why Westerns became less popular due to reactions to the Vietnam War and other American neo-colonialist actions, which again I think is dumb to demonize the culture because of what its current government is doing. And part of me is just kind of amusing myself the idea of imagining like crime without punishment. And bear in mind, this is in the Foreign Policy magazine, so these are the good people writing. The tolerant, bleeding heart liberals who, these are the people that are calling Russians orcs nowadays and demonizing their entire history and culture. By the way, these are the same people that despise J.R.R. Tolkien because, his depiction of the orcs are racistly coded to be minorities or whatever, allegedly. I mean, they're not. And in fact, Tolkien was very uncomfortable with the idea of, an inherently evil race because it went against his, Catholic ideas of redemption. But even then, like, he gave the orcs, personalities, evil personalities to be sure, but, Ugluk and Grizhnok and, Shagbat are, you know, they're fleshed out characters. And again, I've argued this in videos, but I would argue that the orcs, as depicted in the Legendarium, are fairly, they have some virtue, I would say. It was Shagrat, by the way. And I forgot Gorbak. But yeah, like they have medicine and stuff, so clearly they have the empathy to care about each other at the very least. Yeah, I mean, I don't. I mean, I like to think of myself as a tolerant person. I don't approve of demonizing an entire race of people or culture of people as the orcs. You see, people, everybody's got some kind of racial bigotry, even like the nice liberal people, except, just give them a chance to be hateful towards white people and they'll jump on it. John Dolan, writing for The Exile, with the War Nerd columns, he actually put it best. Like, he said, like, if you gave, like, you nice, like, liberal white people in, like, New York and San Francisco an opportunity to go to, like, Alabama and just, like, massacre, like, rednecks, dude, they would, like, you could not stop them. Like, you could not possibly get there any faster than they would if you just gave them a chance. Okay, let's see. Zachary says, crime without punishment. Sounds like California, LOL. I wouldn't mind reading the novel Crime Without Punishment. Okay, Biff Slankovich talking about Russian history. The Russian culture in the 9th century was democratic, in some ways, yes. Kiev was the capital until the Nords unified the tribes, and Ivan the Terrible, Stalin liked him. Yeah, yes, Stalin did kind of look up to Ivan the Terrible. He also, executive meddled the crap out of Eisenstein's movie about Ivan the Terrible, which is, you think Selznick stuff, by having Joseph Stalin editing your movie. Mitchell Valentino says after reading Thackeray for a summer's road trip to dive into Gogol and Pushkin, Russian literature tasted of places artistically you never knew existed. Yeah, it's good stuff. I also like The Sabers of Paradise, which is about like the Caucasian highlands, and it goes to like the romanticism and like the Circassian beauties and stuff, and that whole culture and how it influenced the culture, and also how it influenced Frank Herbert with Dune. That's a whole different issue. Yeah, The Sabers of Paradise, I believe it's called. It's just let me look that up briefly. It's in my big collection of ebooks on my phone. Let's see. Yeah, Sabers of Paradise: Conquest and Vengeance in the Caucasus. Yeah, good book if you read it. Speaking of Eastern Europe, we got some archaeology news. This is interesting to me. A Polish quote unquote vampire was found. Uh, it was a female body who was buried. She had a sickle placed right above her neck, so she presumably rose from her grave. She would be decapitated. Yeah, I always like these little archaeological curiosities. Professor Darius Polinsky of the Copernicus University explains the sickle was not laid flat but placed upon the neck in such a way that if the deceased had tried to rise, the head would be cut off or at least injured. The body was found during archaeological work at a 1600s era cemetery in the village of Pien. She had a silk cap on her head, which indicates high social status, and she had a weird protruding tooth. One of her two front teeth was a little crooked. Also, strangely, she had a padlock put around her toes. Professor Polinsky explained to the Daily Mail that padlocking the big toe symbolized the closing of a stage and the impossibility of returning it. Yeah, you got to keep those women down. Similar graves have been found elsewhere throughout Europe. Ways to protect against the return of the dead include cutting off the head or legs, putting the deceased face down, or putting rocks over their heads. And then the Metro UK says, has this poll, do you believe she's a vampire? No, I'm going to presume this woman was not a vampire. Which is not to say some people don't deserve to be buried with sickles over their necks in general, just as as a matter of principle. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. There's always some delightful shenanigans going on in Ost Europa. Okay, so speaking of science, yeah, we have and again, speaking of Eastern Europe, we're going from Poland now to we're referencing Serbia. That great Serbian man, Nikola Tesla. And guess what quote of his we're referencing? Yep, you guessed it. You will live to see man-made horror beyond your comprehension. Because the National Pulse reports a synthetic human embryo with a brain and a heart formed parthenogenically without using eggs or sperm. This is just a picture on Twitter. I'm gonna see if I can find this thing. Give me 1 second here. Okay, let's see. Here's a CNN article. It's potentially this could lead to infertility treatments, they say. Wait, was it a human or was it a mouse? Hold on. Because I'm finding things about like mouse embryos, but humans, let's see. Uh, yeah, excuse me. I'm trying to figure where this is. Ah, here we go. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, synthetic human embryo made without using eggs or sperm cells. A synthetic embryo with cells capable of forming a brain and a beating heart was developed by University of Cambridge. Is that Cambridge, Massachusetts, or Cambridge, England? I gotta check that out. Excuse my lack of preparation. It's that's England. Okay, the team led by a Professor Getz, Magdalena Getz. They use stem cells. Three types. Your pluripotent and totipotent stem cells found in early mammalian development. And speak of the devil, that was just what my lesson plan I just did this morning was about. Hey, the stem cells self-segregate into structures that progress through the successive, gastrulation and cleavage. So they had a beating heart and the neural tube, as well as the yolk sac. Okay, the findings took over a decade of work. This could potentially be useful for a lot of different things. I'm a little perturbed at this whole idea. I mean, it's not like there's been decades of, science fiction literature about artificial humans and why they're creepy as hell. I mean, did we not see the movie Blade Runner, Frankenstein? Like, hello, Hello? And of course, this topic, somebody mentioned Blade Runner, and it has to lead to the debate of, was Deckard a replicant? I got to get off topic here, but no, Deckard was not a goddamn replicant. The movie has no plot if Deckard's a replicant, you idiots. The whole point is that this disillusioned, racist cop learns to see the replicants as real people and respect them. If he's a replicant, that doesn't make any sense. It's like a toaster having empathy for another toaster. Jesus. Anyway, I digress. I could keep quoting other science fiction movies here. Dr. Malcolm says, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. And you know what else is really popular? That show The Boys. In the comic book, the embryos are literally grown in labs that become the soups. It's this. There's been decades of culture telling us not to do this. Homunculi are not good. These are literally the man-made horrors beyond our comprehension. Like, can we stop? Like this Twitter thread I'm looking at has so many like references. This is go back to Lord of the Rings. These are the fighting Orokai being spawned from the flesh pits. Flesh pits. Mortal Kombat has flesh pits. If we're getting to the point where like, oh god, I'm like, Ted Kaczynski's seeming pretty sympathetic right now. Just saying. I mean, what? No, Susan. I'm joking. I'm joking, Susan. Like, if we're can we as a culture like not have like flesh pits? I'd very much appreciate that. Well, anyway, yeah. If unfortunately, I think I'm going to be a little too old to fight in the like human versus like cyber human wars in the future. But you young whippersnappers, you have fun with that, or the replicant wars, whatever the hell you want to call them. Live the good life in the off-world colonies. Okay, and then we're coming down to the idiotic part of the news here. Speaking of vaguely related to the whole embryo thing, and I quote, this is another going from the scientists to the stupid sex researchers. Cosmopolitan has an article says why guys get turned on by the female orgasm and why that's bad. So apparently, sexually satisfying your partner is bad. Apparently, I mean, do I want to read this? I mean, I have to read Cosmopolitan. Like, let's see. New study says that men derive a sort of masculine pleasure from making their female partners satisfied. They refer to this as a masculine achievement. Yeah, God forbid that like men, want to pleasure their partners. Like, no, we should. Correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't this been like a joke amongst like comedians for decades? Like how men will just pump and dump and then fall asleep without making them orgasm. So now all of a sudden, like it's bad to. What do women want exactly? Like, I'm just saying, like, sexual pleasure, like, literally evolved to make sure that we did it. Like, how are people so obtuse to, like, basic human nature? Like, so what if men get, masculine, like, conquering, like, feelings if they make their woman, feel good? I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I feel that sort of like patriarchal conquest feeling. So what? Like, she's happy, I'm happy, everybody's happy. But apparently, this is a problem here. Also, who the hell wrote this article? The editors. Okay, so I can't blame any specific person for this idiocy. I can't help but notice that like there's a growing trend in that like normal heterosexual behavior is like bad for some reason. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there that Brave New World show that came out recently? Like in Brave New World, they wait, no, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up my dystopias here. 1984. Wait, or was it? Yeah, 1984 was like the scientists were like, we're gonna make sure like nobody feels sexual pleasure. It's just gonna be for, just for procreation. Again, this book was not a instruction manual, and yet they always make it. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, 1984. It's that whole, the boot stamping on the human face forever speech. Yes, procreation will be an annual formality like the renewal of a ration card. We shall abolish orgasms. Our neurologists are at work upon it now. There is no love, there is no loyalty except towards the party. There is no love except the love of Big Brother, and so on and so forth. Who reads these books and says it's a good idea? M Detector 5 says if an article is credited to the editors, it means they're covering up for the one person that wrote it. Well, yeah, probably. I mean, I'd be ashamed to have my name on that article. Again, like, what is it that women want exactly? So if men just, pump and dump for 30 seconds, then go to sleep without their satisfaction, that's bad. But if men deliberately want to satisfy the woman, that's bad. So it's like we need to satisfy the woman, but not want to. Like it's just like something we accidentally do, I guess. I don't get it. I mean, I like to think that I am better off with regards to women than most men, but it's a mystery I'll never quite understand. And speaking of the ladies, kind of comedian now comedian Eddie Izzard. I wonder if he still goes by Eddie now, or is he like Edith or Edwina? Anyway, he struggles to find romance as a trans woman. Now, you can always tell that Eddie Izzard felt like a woman on the inside by how many of his comedy routines reference military history and things like that. Because that's what all the girls are into. But it's all disguise. You see, that's like what they always say. How you have these super macho like middle aged men who just become women. Well, their macho personas are just a disguise for their inner girliness. So when Bruce Jenner was busting his ass for decades to win the decathlon, and he was like the world's greatest athlete. That didn't matter. He was a girl on the inside. When you had like that guy on Jeopardy who's like, yeah, my favorite movie of all time is Master and Commander, which is one of the most egregiously masculine movies ever made. Yeah, he's just he was really he really wanted to read Vanity Fair and Jane Austen. That's his Victoriana. These people not. Ugh, Jesus. And of course, the trans rights campaign says fight bigotry, fight period bigotry period. So it's super super like hard there. You're really they're really emphasizing this. 98% of straight men are unwilling to date trans women because of hatred. Well, no, I don't hate trans people at all. And fun fact, somehow in one class I have two trans men. Like, I guess girls who became dudes. I don't know if they went whole hog, but or if they're just wearing the clothes. I am polite. I'm respectful. I respect their names and pronouns. I don't dead name them. But you know, again, I have no hate in my heart. But I'm still not willing to date a trans woman because, to be honest, I'd rather not 30 years from now have my wife die of testicular cancer. So my regards to Eddie Izzard. I wish you the best, ma'am. But again, a lot of this woke stuff, a lot of this anger does revolve around a lack of sexual partners. And here's a prime example of that. Now we're cutting down to the nitty gritty. Okay. And finally, some pop culture news. Chris Benoit trended on Twitter. Why? Because somebody at a WWE show had a shirt saying, "I'm a better father than Chris Benoit." And somehow that got on camera. Chris Benoit, of course, being sort of a non person in the WWE lore for very obvious reasons. And, I know Vinnie Mac is retired now due to the cavalcade of sex issues that he has, but I can imagine he would have, had an aneurysm if he saw that on TV. I don't know if he's watching, but I'm kind of hoping he was. All right, so that does it for my prepared remarks. If anybody has anything to say it now. All right, so nobody has anything to say. So for Larsen Halleck, I'm Larsen Halleck. You all have a good day.